once you've won the Hunger Games, it is not over. You are sent on a victory tour. And this happened to Katniss and Peeta after the 74th Hunger Games. They were thrown on a train and they had to go around each of the other districts and say, hey, we survived, your family members didn't. So let's look at the highlights of that. So the start of the victory tour for Katniss and Peeta started in District 11, and this was where Rue and Thresh were from. So this is obviously quite poignant for Katniss, quite hard for Katniss as well, because she formed an alliance and a bond and a friendship with Rue. Rue reminded her of her little sister. And Rue was then unfortunately killed during the games, and there's that lovely scene where Rue asks Katniss to sing to her, and she does, and it's very emotional. And I think just about, as I'm about to become a parent myself, I can't even imagine what it must have been like for her family to watch this, because it was required viewing for the districts and just a point of entertainment for the capital. District 11 isn't able to really voice anything, any concerns, anything, because of the fear of rebellion and the result of them saying anything at all. But at the end of the visit, the capital basically kills someone in front of the whole of District 11, which is basically to squash any potential uprising. It reminds people of capital control and just says, this is us, this is you, don't overstep the boundaries. It was after this point that Katniss stuck to the cards, or she just let Peeta do it. I think that again broke her again a bit further, and we do know that Katniss had PTSD, had nightmares, all this stuff was going on, so we do know that this was a very real thing for her. Throughout the tour, Katniss and Peeta are presented as symbols of capital strength. It's meant to show the districts that the capital can control even the most rebellious citizens. They're forced to go along with this spectacle, where their every move is manipulated and every word is given to them by the capital. It is very much designed to reinforce dominance over the districts, and it reminds the districts that their victories are only temporary, making sure that no one actually challenges the capital's authority. Now, we know that as the tour continues, Katniss and Peeta start to play up to this role of the romance, blurring the line between real and fake emotions here. And they do struggle with their real emotions, because Katniss obviously is stuck with Peeta. You can tell she has some feelings for Gale as well. That always confused me. I'm pretty sure she was the one that said, let's get married to Peeta, but also then went and kissed Gale. So that was a little bit confusing for me. But she obviously then feels trapped in her role on the tour as a victor, and by the capital's expectations of her. Obviously we know she then has to convince Snow that actually they are in love and this is real, and please don't hurt anyone else that she cares about. So a lot comes in from this tour to just basically affirm capital control and dominance there. But as I've mentioned, Katniss kind of does have to put on a show, and she has to prove things to Snow. But Snow becomes suspicious that Katniss has a potential to spark rebellion, and she has a symbol and a defiance during the games as well, which starts to kind of trickle through the districts, and he starts to see her as a threat. His growing hatred, that's the best word for it, his hatred towards her, sets the stage for the second rebellion that becomes the main theme of Catching Fire. But Katniss starts to feel the pressure of being this symbol, and it's for something she doesn't really fully understand. But at the end of the tour, Snow actually says to Katniss that her role in the games and her defiance may lead to consequences for her and the people she loves. So basically, it's a very thinly veiled threat that he's just given her. So at the end of the tour, they go back to District 12, and Katniss and Peeta are hailed as heroes. They have their houses in the Victor's village as well. But it's actually quite a bittersweet return, because District 12 is the most poor and oppressed district in Panem. The district citizens obviously welcome Katniss and Peeta home with open arms, but the capital control over the district is still very much present. But also it symbolises that Katniss isn't just a victor anymore. She's a symbol of something much, much larger, whether she realised it at the time or not. And the capital uses the victory tour to actually show that the victor is their puppet. And it's clear that Katniss, she's not going to fit as that puppet for much longer, because a lot of people are starting to, you know, do the Mockingjay symbol, wear her hair like that. She's become an icon. Even Snow's granddaughter was wearing her hair like Katniss. One thing obviously we've got to mention is the relationship between Peeta and Katniss, which becomes more and more evident throughout the victory tour. So the capital insists that they maintain this facade of a relationship, who, you know, star-crossed lovers who survived the games together. But the feelings are complicated because Peeta is genuinely in love with Katniss, whereas Katniss is kind of trapped by her role. So she's got this rebellious thing she's got to think about. She's got Gale, she's got her family, she's then got Peeta. There's a lot going on. So I think that she has a lot of internal conflict going on that maybe Peeta doesn't have. So it's not as black and white for Katniss as it is for Peeta. And, you know, Peeta does say things to try and save her, like about the baby. Let's, you know, for the 75th Hunger Games anyway, let's, like, try and, you know, need to look after the baby, we're getting married, all this sort of stuff. Whereas for Katniss, the games have made her a symbol of rebellion, and the capital have to try and squash that. That cannot be allowed to spread. But the victory tour also foreshadows a rebellion that explodes in the next book. So she becomes the face of defiance without actually intending to. And things that she does on the tour, so her genuine sorrow over Rue, her defiance against the capital, things like that, it sets the stage for Catching Fire. The tour actually builds her identity as a Mockingjay, as a symbol of rebellion. Although she doesn't really understand it at this point, she's already becoming the figurehead of the second rebellion. I think we can be clear that she knows something is going on. She also seen some screens of people being, you know, the peacekeepers having to get involved and stuff like that. But I don't know if she understands the vastness of it, because I think she's very much kept to, she only sees what they want her to see. And I think that becomes very evident as she goes through the tour, that there's a lot she doesn't know. And there's a lot going on, which is, you know, it comes to a head, doesn't it? So let's look at the key themes of the victory tour. So we have propaganda and control, which is obviously the capital's manipulation. We have public versus private identity. So Katniss's personal struggles are contrasted with her role in the propaganda machine. She has to be someone in public who she isn't actually necessarily in private. There's an emerging rebellion, and it's the cost of victory. So for Katniss, she doesn't get peace and rest having won the games. She is basically trapped into being bound to the capital, and they want her to be part of the political game as well. So you can argue that the victory tour is an essential turning point in the Hunger Games. It highlights the oppressive nature of the capital, manipulation of public figures for political purposes, and the sense of rebellion. For Katniss, it is a constant reminder that her victory has come as a cost, and a constant cost. So you have freedom, her autonomy, her privacy is obviously gone, and people who have seen her as a role model are now getting harmed, another consequence of her winning. But it also sets the stage for a larger political conflict that unravels in Catching Fire and beyond. So that, my friends, is just the victory tour highlights. Let me know if you think there's something else I should have included in this video, if there's another important section, something else we should consider. I'll be really interested to know what you think. But until next time, you take care.